Maiduguri, Borno State, protested over the lack of food and relief items following the devastating flood that struck on September 9, 2024. Now, the protesters, mostly the Baga Road area, blocked traffic at a major junction, and they expressed frustration over insufficient humanitarian aid. Borno State Commissioner of Police CP Mohammed Lawal Yusufu urged calm and assured the victims that relief efforts were underway. He emphasized that the government, in collaboration with the National Emergency Management Agency NEMA and the State Emergency Management Agency SEMA, were working to provide essential support, warning the protesters not to disrupt public peace or hinder ongoing operations. The displaced victims have been given token cards to collect government-disrupted palliative or distributed palliatives, I beg your pardon. Collaborative efforts between the Borno State government and humanitarian organizations are in place to provide food, shelter, and clean water. Around 50,000 people have been relocated to temporary shelters. The United Nations reports that 4.8 million people in Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe states are facing a food and nutrition crisis. There is also an increased risk of disease outbreak in the overcrowded, internally displaced persons camps. This is the current report coming all the way from Borno State and other nearby states that are also affected by the flood. But let's talk about the Maiduguri residents first off, who are protesting about not having care. They've not had enough care. According to them, there have been no food, not enough food for them, and they've also talked about the relief materials not being enough or not even being there. All right, George, what are your thoughts on this sad story?
Well, I would like to begin with a quote from Alistair Cook in his book, written many years ago, but very important and still powerful, a reality. When we're looking at this humanitarian crisis, food and nutrition crisis in Borno State as a result of the flood, when I look at that quote, it's a clear picture of what is happening today in Borno State. He said, no group of humans, however individually noble, will likely remain noble in the desperation of thirst. That is, when people are desperately thirsty, hungry for steps in. Now the people are protesting because they don't have food, their food supplies is cut off. Most of them, they have lost their houses, their farms, their infrastructure destroyed. They are displaced mentally, physically, emotionally, financially. Their dignity taken away from them. That's frustration. What is happening in Borno State? There are many lessons for Nigeria as a country. There are many lessons for the people of Borno State, and we can make advancements when we learn, right? Flooding is something that is happening almost every year. You hear of one flood disaster or the other. It's happening all the time. It's not a strange thing. It's not a new thing. So we keep hearing all these reports, but what are we doing? What concrete actions are we taking to address this hydra-headed problem? The people of Borno State are devastated, and I sympathize with them. The state government, the federal government, humanitarian agencies, first responders, they should all work together to save lives. Many Nigerians, when we hear of reports of issues happening either in Israel, Palestine, Middle East, crisis in Ukraine, Russia, or an attack in an European capital, you will see on their status, in solidarity with those people. But how many Nigerians are really showing that brotherhood and solidarity with the people of Borno today. So we have been subjected to a system of repeated mistakes, continuous. We need to take a bold step. We need to take bold action. We need to understand that we cannot continue in a cycle of failure.
By we, who are you referring to?
All Nigerians.
Okay.
The federal governments, state governments, stakeholders, humanitarian organizations. Let's sit down and learn. Today in Borno State, many people are displaced. Tens of thousands of people are displaced. You look at health implication, you look at diseases, you look at malnutrition, the safety, security, and it's a catalyst for conflict. It's something that is going to it gives room for conflict.
Talking about conflict, now the people have come out to protest, and I'm looking at the response. Is it the CP's response now, where he said they shouldn't worry, help is on the way, and then they should not disrupt the peace and order in the community? And I'm wondering where the peace and order is. Is it in the midst of the flood that we're talking about currently, that we're talking about the peace and order that the people should not disrupt? What peace is in a place where someone has been sent out of his house due to flooding, not according to his will, but he just has to move? What peace is in a place where people have lost their lives? What kind of peace are we actually talking about in an environment where, with all of what is going on, they are saying there's no food? Like, there's no food, not because they don't have money to get food, but they can't even get food around there.
Of course, when there is a flooding situation, how do you expect to get food? Because even most of the farmlands are destroyed and overrun.
People's
with floods,
livelihood.
yes, flood waters and everything, livelihood threatened, businesses shut down, education shut down, healthcare systems devastated, destroyed or ruined. So before this disaster, what actions have the state government taken to mitigate this disaster that is happening right now? Right? We are in a system where we fail to learn. We must be a people that learn. We don't wait for flood to prepare us. We prepare for flood. We don't wait for disaster or crisis. We put steps, we take actions that will reduce, mitigate, and make sure that this crisis don't skyrocket or don't snowball, escalate into a more tense situation. Before this flooding took place, are there facilities in place for placing these displaced persons? Are there facilities in place where displaced persons can go to that are equipped to take care of their mental and physical needs?
Yeah, that's another question. Those are two questions. First question, are there facilities? We have IDP camps.
Okay.
But then when you come to the part where you said equipped with what was it you said again?
There should be facilities.
That's another thing.
Yes, there should be facilities. A few years ago, myself and Dr. Henry Sanko Jr. from Sierra Leone, we organized a health training seminar. As at then, there was a flood disaster, and many cities in Nigeria were flooded, impacted by the flooding. I sat down with my team members and I asked myself one very important question. What is my role, or what is my responsibility, or what can I do to contribute to this menace? It's easy to sit down and do nothing, because the do nothing class complain about everything and do nothing about everything. So we are talking about flooding now because there are some first responders in a flooding situation as we are experiencing in Borno State. The government now can take a lesson from this and see how they can start training first responders in emergency situation. How do you respond? Train the people. First aid. There are so many lives that could have been lost, that must have been lost, or that are being lost, that could have been saved with the right knowledge. You don't have the manpower, the medical manpower that can take care of the entire state. You can train the citizens on basic first aid measures.
You're talking about training the citizens now, training them now?
This is a pre-disaster situation, but even as the situation is now,
okay,
the government can carry out training for first responders, because there are many displaced persons that are scattered around or littered around the IDP camps. They need urgent health attention. They need professional health services, health attention, because the flooding comes with a lot of diseases, food and waterborne diseases, cholera, typhoid, and most of these victims don't have basic knowledge.
Talking about that, yes. And then you mentioned the being proactive about it. But let's talk about that now. At what point, not in the reactionary measure now, where you're saying teach them now, at the point are you talking about teaching them? What exactly are you referring to? Are you talking about it being incorporated in
agency? There is a book where there is no doctor. I think I read it many years ago. What do you do? Now the people of Borno State are faced with flooding. Yes, proactive measures, I would call them very poor. This is post-flooding. Yes, they can still do something. First, they need to sit down and understand the situation, look at the impact of the damages, and put in place a policy and a framework on dealing with future disasters like this, because this is to give room to conflict and already
to do crisis. You have someone who has, let's say, probably the person is asthmatic, and you have no idea how to handle that situation except giving the person an inhaler. In a situation where there's no inhaler, where even when their kids still coming up, they know how to handle certain situations. What are your thoughts on that?
It is beautiful because you see, education. Mom was, struggling to breathe because he has learned some basic things as a child on what to do when there is an emergency. He quickly called 911, an emergency line. Now that will also bring out the government of Borno State can also have emergency centers, like in cases of flooding. You don't even need to wait for the next flooding. You need to start preparing for any form of disaster that people can easily call to receive prompt attention. That can save a life. A split-minute decision can save a life. A split-minute indecision can take a life.
Are you saying we do not have emergency response teams in Nigeria?
We could, but it should be functioning and it should be accessible to people, even in the rural areas, right? It should be accessible. And then the boy called 911 and his mother's life was saved. Imagine if he was playing around when his mom was having a seizure, she would have died. Now, in incorporating it in our educational curriculum, it's very important we incorporate emergency basic safety measures.
But do we not have that? You've been in the educational system for some time. Don't we have measures that are incorporated in our curriculum to teach kids how to handle, especially first aid emergencies?
I think it's not sufficient. I would say it's not sufficient. For example, we don't really have much orientation on emergency situation like flooding. What can the child do? Apart from incorporating it in our curriculum, we should be having seminars and workshops and training.
Not just flooding now, not just flooding.
Not just flooding.
Any
generally, emergency situations.
Yes, we don't have that in our curriculum, so you're saying?
I'm not saying we
don't have it. From the knowledge that you have, yes.
I'm saying it's not sufficient.
Okay.
We have some safety training for kids in schools,
okay,
but it's not sufficient. It's not enough to just have it in the curriculum. It's important we have it.
We talked about, we're told that there was a dam collapse, there was prior notice, oh, this is what's going to happen. And even now, the federal government has been talking. But the truth is, it takes more than just that. You know, talking about the federal government now, the president, Bola Tinubu, has reaffirmed his commitment to delivering concrete results in key areas such as infrastructure, food security, energy, and education. Speaking during a meeting with the Forum of Former Presiding Officers of the National Assembly that was led by former Senate President Ken Nnamani, Tinubu emphasized that his administration's focus is to serve the country, not for personal gains. I didn't come to look for money, I came to work. Those are the words of Tinubu, adding that the support from former colleagues, regardless of party differences, underscores the need for unity to achieve national goals, and he stressed the importance of collaboration, noting that Nigeria's development hinges on inclusiveness and financial discipline. The president acknowledged that the country faces significant challenges, including infrastructural decay and educational neglect. But he expressed optimism about overcoming these hurdles through determined efforts. Former Senate President Nnamani assured Tinubu of the group's full support, praising his administration's courage in tackling pressures or pressing issues such as local government autonomy, pledging assistance in nation building. You know, stories like this, we are actually looking out for what exactly was stated as the move that will be taken or made in giving us the tangible results that have been promised concerning infrastructure, education, and all of the sectors that have been mentioned. But that's a school of thought. What is yours?
Leadership is not a storytelling class of what you can do. Leadership is what are you doing now. I want to spend a lot of my time and my life not talking so much about the problem. You can't ignore the problem. But what are you doing now? Leadership is practical. Leadership is action. Leadership is not just usurious, expensive items for themselves to live this flamboyant lifestyle.
But is that an indication that they're not taking actions towards infrastructural development?
If you're talking about actions, let's look at concrete actions you have taken. I would have expected the president to say, yes, I can feel the pains of Nigerians. Yes, we have educational challenges, we have educational issues, infrastructure deficit, security problems. This is what I am doing now. I am restructuring our educational system through this policy, or I am putting in place a review of our security approach and methodology to ensure that we come up with a problem-solving approach that will curtail or minimize the impact of insecurity in the country. That is a more realistic, solution-based leadership communication to the citizens. Don't tell a man that he is sick and leave it there. Do something about the sickness if you can. If you can't, then you're just talking about the sickness. He will become sick. The man will become sicker. Sickness will increase.
Let's find out what you think about discussing the plans now. That's a government having plans on ground and coming out to discuss the plans. Is this really what the people want to hear? Because from your explanation, you have said this is what you expected the president to do, to talk about the particular moves that are being made, right? And actions that are being carried out to put an end to these things. But overall now, the people really want to hear these actions, or do you think it's just the end result that people are looking out for? I'd like to get your overall thought on just coming out to discuss actions.
Communication is important because you communicate the plan, you act the plan. In leadership, you don't just exclude or take off communication, because the people must be included in your developmental initiative. They must not just be seen, they must be heard, because they will give you feedback on the policies and the steps you are taking to change their life. You can't completely solve all the problems in Nigeria, even though you are the president and you are the governor, you are the minister, but Nigerians are not asking or are not saying you should solve everything, all the problem. What they are saying is walk the talk. You must talk. Walk the talk. If you go to a village that don't have access to quality education, no good public infrastructure, and no good water supply or sewage, do you know millions of people are still defecating in gutters, open air? Look at our public toilets. I volunteer in an environmental organization, and we go to the field, we do research, we do a lot of volunteer work as it relates to the sustainable development goals for the environment. And it beats my mind and it pricks my heart when I look at the data and statistics, and when I go out there and see with my eyes what Nigerians are experiencing and going through daily. We don't have public functioning toilets in many areas, in many places. In this 21st century society, as a country with over 60 years of independence, we can't have functioning public toilets. People have to go to defecate in open spaces, in gutters.
And they're being arrested, actually.
Okay, you are arresting them. But even the few public toilets that we have, they pay for it. Okay, fine. The money being paid will be used to maintain it. But how clean and healthy is those toilets? And then you cannot take off the attitude of Nigerians. Because even with the public toilets, most Nigerians have this lackadaisical and negligence. They will use the public toilet, they will mess it up, they will just, because it's not theirs.
But that's why we have people on ground to maintain these places.
Beautiful. We have people on ground to maintain the public toilets. But how healthy and functioning is our public toilet system? So these are areas. For example, you are traveling from Port Harcourt to Lagos. How many public toilets can you stop by? I'm not talking about going to an eatery or a fast food chain.
Now they now lock their toilets.
Very good.
So that people will not use them.
So this is a 21st century society we're living in, and we can't boast of functioning public toilets, and many citizens are defecating in open spaces and in gutters. That's a leadership problem. We need leaders to fix it. So if you are the president, or you're a member of the House of Representatives, or you are a senator, you are occupying one public office or the other, identify the problems, and develop solutions in coordination with the people in your constituent to address it. Don't just be talking the problems.
But what do you think is the issue? We have various peoples manning various positions in different sectors of our economy. So it simply means that any sector you look at, whether you think there's a deficiency in that sector or not, there is somebody that has been placed in a leadership position to handle whatever issues that will come up with that sector. So what exactly do you think is the issue? Why are there lapses? Even though some Nigerians are not even aware who is supposed to man what and who is supposed to handle what, we all just look at the president. Oh, the president is not doing enough. I'm not saying anything. I'm not standing on any side now. I'm just helping you understand that people are not aware who is supposed to do what and who is not supposed to do what. Now the question is, if we have all these people in all these leadership positions, if everybody just does their job, a lot of the issues that we have in our society will not be there. So what exactly is the problem with people not just doing what they're supposed to do?
First, you can look at it as mental slavery. When you emancipate your mind from mental slavery, you think for yourself, you ask questions, you reason, you think outside the box. Many Nigerians are trapped in a box of mental slavery.
Including the leaders?
Including the leaders. Now, do you know the beauty of programs like this? We are educating the masses, sensitizing them, empowering them with useful information that will uplift their life, change their life, transform their life, renew their mind, stretch the elasticity of their thinking, take them out of the box and challenge them to sit down and reason for themselves. Now look at the public toilet system that I am referencing as an environmentalist and a volunteer and as someone who have dedicated my life to for the development and improvement of humanity and society. In my community is an island. When I was growing up as a child, we do go to for those who come from poorer families and poorer homes, who don't have modern toilets in their houses, we go to the riverside to pass out the phases. Sometimes you have these toilet houses built at the edge of the river, so you just pass your phases into the river. Now, in this modern 21st century society, maybe that's how our forefathers do go out and do. Why are we still having such? Now, you asked a very important question, that what really is the problem that we keep having this same situation reoccurring, this hydra-headed monster reappearing every time, is a leadership problem. What stops the councillors or the local government chairman or the member of the House of Assembly or House of Representatives to sit down, go to your community? Why is it that my people are still going to toilets at the riverside in this modern era, using buildings like that? You can build.
So we still have that going on even up till now. People,
if you go to my community today, there are still many people who don't have modern toilets in their houses, who still go to the riverside to pass out phases, who still use the old toilet houses built at the edge of rivers. Some of them are even wood, some that have converted. What most of these councillors do, they build toilet houses, block toilet houses on the riverside, and they celebrate it as one of the best achievements or biggest achievement they have. In this modern era, we are building toilet houses at the riverside. You are polluting the river. You are messing up the environment. You are giving room to a lot of diseases and everything. You could build modern toilet houses. If you go to other countries that many Nigerian politicians and leaders travel to for vacation, they are even using their waste phases and everything as biofuel. They are using all kind of applying renewable energy. They are tapping into bioenergy.
But then we have
so
local
many
government chairmen in these places. We have people who are responsible for making sure that this is available. Even sometimes when we talk about electricity, or some places there's no electricity, we have leaders in these places. And one will wonder why, what's going on? Is it that the people are not speaking up enough? Or is it that the leaders are not seeing what's going on? Is it that they don't even stay in the communities? What exactly can we even pinpoint now as the issue?
Both the leaders and the followers have a share of the cake.
Let's even start from the community you made reference to, since that's something that's more relatable.
Okay, you're talking about my community.
So is it that the people have not spoken up against it, or are the people not even aware that it's outdated or something that shouldn't be right now, or is it that the local government chairman or the people responsible are not even staying in that in your community now?
Both the people and the leaders have a share of the cake, of the blame, are responsible. I say both the people and the leaders because maybe the people are used to it. They've not been exposed to modern toilet facilities. All they grew up, most of them grew up seeing toilet houses at the riverside, and they are comfortable with it. And maybe their awareness level is still low, that they are not seeing it as a priority, or they feel like it's not important. Education opens the eyes of the people. When you are educated on something, it enlightens your mind. You begin to see things differently. That's why education goes beyond school. You learn a lot outside the classroom, and if you don't think outside the classroom, you'll just be stuck with the knowledge you got from the classroom, and that's not sufficient to carry you through life's journey. The people maybe must have been exposed to that kind of system for a long time, and so they are adapted to it.
So there have not been any form of protest at all that you're aware of, anything like that?
I'm not aware of protests. I believe and I think and feel that they are not seen, it's not a priority to them. There are other things maybe that might be important priorities to them, but it's an important priority. That's why with enlightenment programs like this, we also educate the people on the importance of their health. And most of these practices that are not good for their health should be outdated, because as a people, as a society, we must advance and we must grow. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Deima, for that. Let's move on to the next story now. The federal government has reaffirmed its commitment to supporting special needs learners, talking about education now, special need learners, ensuring their access to quality education. This was announced by Dr. Hamid Boboy, the Executive Secretary of the Universal Basic Education Commission, UBEC, during a capacity building workshop for teachers on inclusive education delivery in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State. Boboy highlighted that 2% of the federal government's consolidated revenue fund is allocated to special needs education, 2%, under the Universal Basic Education Program. He stressed that this intervention would continue to help learners overcome barriers to quality education. The UBEC has also partnered with private providers to design programs that, cater for children with special needs. And Boboy has noted that the 1,019 special basic schools included in the UBEC 2022-2023 National Personal Audit, 515 were government-run, with an enrollment of 124,867 learners, while 405 private schools had 51,140 learners. And Haji Aisha Abdul, UBEC's Director of Special Programs, has praised the Commission's effort in training about 1,878 teachers nationwide, further strengthening the inclusive education system. We don't get to talk about this all the time. Most times when we talk about education, we discuss other things, but we don't get to see this side of it in the news, talking about students with special needs. How much care do you think these people are getting from the government?
I think it's not sufficient. The care that special needs children or students or special needs education is getting in Nigeria is not sufficient. Now, training teachers for special needs is just one aspect of it. You need to provide the facilities and make your learning environment comfortable and conducive and friendly. If you want to have an inclusive education that does not discriminate against a child because he is blind or he can't walk or he has one form of deformity or the other, We have seen many people that have one physical deformity or the other, but that does not affect their mind. They are doing so well. The other day on TV, I was watching on TV a senator from Kenya. She was visually impaired, and she was speaking to an international audience. But she said something that struck my heart. She said she could be visually impaired, but she's not mentally impaired. You can be physically challenged. Maybe one part of your body is not working, but you're not. Your mind is not. You're not suffering. You're not handicapped. You can be physically challenged, but you're not handicapped. Your mind is not limited. The power and the potentials of your mind cannot be limited by your physical condition. That's why mental empowerment is very important. Now, looking at special needs, Nigeria is lagging behind among the community of nations or committee of nations that are building inclusive educational system that looks at special needs. Many people are not even aware of those that need special education. Many of our schools don't have facility to accommodate a special need child. Look at the millions of students in our secondary schools and in our universities. We have a lot of people in our universities. How many universities have facilities for special needs that can... I know someone, he has a physical challenge with his legs. He have to use his crutches, and his lecture hall is
oh my God,
upstairs, like a story building.
Yes.
He finds it difficult to go to class with his condition. It's not accessible for him. It's not friendly for him. The educational infrastructure, that's why it is important. Going forward, our government, Ministry of Education, when building classrooms, should ensure that the classrooms and the infrastructure and the schools are built and structured in such a manner that it will accommodate special needs education. Now, let me flip the page to the other side. Bad leadership have turned Nigerians into people who need special need, who are special needs people.
Before we generalize it now, before we talk about that, talking about something that you mentioned about the buildings and how exactly it should be, how you should accommodate people with special needs. That's something that's very vital. There have been an advocacy for some time now by some of these individuals concerning the way some of our buildings are erected, down to houses, down to banks, down to some of these places that they have to access as human beings, but because of probably their wheelchair or their mini bike or whatever it is they're using that helps them move around, there's no provision for that to come into the building, into the facility, and that's a problem that a lot of them are having. Even when we look at public vehicles, there's no provision for that. Are we saying they should not use public vehicles? So it's more like we are just making provision for... I'm not saying there's no facility in Nigeria that doesn't, that was not erected with them in mind, but we have less of that, and we should actually have more of that. We should have these things being considered when building certain places.
Now, it is beautiful when you talk about transportation, because I wanted to talk about transportation. Many of these people that are special needs, they are special. They should be treated with dignity and humanity. We should not dehumanize them. But the society seems to be, it looks like we are dehumanizing these people. Because transportation, imagine someone with a wheelchair and he wants to travel from Mile 1 to Rumokoro. Is there a vehicle he can easily enter with his wheelchair? It's difficult. And our Nigerian way of life.
How we jump in into vehicles and jump out
jumping in, jumping out, and if you go to cities like Lagos and you are lazy, you'll be stranded.
Or in Benin.
People are jumping in. The vehicle is still on motion, and people are jumping out of the vehicle. Imagine a man that is on wheelchair.
I don't think we have much of that again because.
No, we have some people who still do it. You know, we have some people who still act like that. We have some people who still behave in such kind of that kind of attitude. Now, the question is, how can we improve our transportation sector to accommodate people with special needs, inclusive transportation system that will make it easy so we can have the state governments, partnership with the federal governments and transportation companies can even have a transport system that will be special needs friendly. You can have their vehicles. It's not like you are discriminating or isolating them, but something that can be special needs friendly. Or even if you have the public transport system, make room for special needs. And then orientate the people to treat these people with respect. Most people don't learn, they don't know that. Once you are not on tie and on suit and dressed well, they just look down on you.
But then do we even treat ourselves with respect? A lot of times we just, do not treat humanity with respect. Not talk of people that you feel you have to help in one way or the other.
What makes you a leader or a responsible person is how you treat even the least person. Nobody is less, nobody is bigger, but how you treat everyone. Like even from the conductor to the driver, to the cleaner, to your cook. I've seen some families, especially some wealthy homes, they treat their staff with so much disrespect, right? They treat them with, especially maybe if the person is the cook and there's no respect at all, this big manism kind of culture and behavior where we tend to look at you and less than us.
That thing is even everywhere. It's everywhere. It's not just with the rich or with the people who feel they're influential or who feel they're above anybody. Even the people that you think are the ones that are being looked down on, they are the actual ones looking down on people.
That happens.
Yes.
Even the people that are poor, it's a thing of attitude.
They are the ones even looking down on people, and you wonder what exactly is going on in the society. But at this point we'll take some time off, just a very short break, and after that we will return to continue this interesting conversation. Please stay with us.
The people of Maiduguri need your help. A catastrophic flood has engulfed the city, leaving over 1 million residents stranded and fighting for survival. Entire communities are submerged, with people trapped inside homes and on rooftops cut off from food, clean drinking water and essential supplies. Health experts are warning of a potential outbreak of deadly diseases, and medical facilities are out of commission. The situation is dire. Helicopters, boats and high-riding trucks capable of navigating the treacherous, waterlogged areas are urgently required to reach the countless men, women and children still awaiting rescue. The Nigerian media is issuing a desperate plea to the government, humanitarian organizations, international actors and citizens across the nation. Step in now, before it's too late. For more information on how you can help, contact Professor Usman A. Tar, the Honorable Commissioner for Information and Internal Security, Borno State, on 0809-233-3955. Every second counts.
This is powered by Atlantic Television Network.
right, thank you so much for standing by and staying right here with us on Atlantic Television Network. Down to our next story now on Atlantic Sunday. The federal government has warned private employers to comply with the new 70,000 naira minimum wage, stressing that failure to adhere will result in legal consequences. Speaking at the 13th annual general meeting of the Employers Association for Private Employment Agencies of Nigeria in Lagos, Alhaji Ismaila Abubakar, Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment, emphasized that the minimum wage is now law and any employer paying less risks prosecution. He stated that it is a punishable crime for any employer to pay less than 70,000 naira. The least paid worker in Nigeria should earn 70,000 naira after deductions. Abubakar, represented by the ministry's Director of Employment and Wages, John Nyamali, urged private recruitment agencies to enforce this in their contracts. In response, Dr. Olufemi Ogunlowo, president of EPEN, actually asked for clarification on whether the 70,000 naira is the net or gross salary, stressing the association's commitment to providing decent jobs and preventing exploitation. Well, NLC Lagos chairperson from Shesi, however, expressed concerns that the 70,000 naira minimum wage does not suffice in the current economic climate, calling for swift compliance from private employers. Okay, this is on two sides now. First, they're saying, is this the gross or the net? Well, they're saying after deductions, after removing the tax, removing whatever deductions you think you're taking off your employee's salary, the salary should be 70,000 naira for the least employee, down to depending on the hierarchy of that organization. But like it was stated at the end of the story, do you think this is something that is viable considering the current economic situation in Nigeria?
When you are in the glass house, don't throw stones. It's easy to pass instructions, and it's easy to say that private employers should pay 70,000 naira. Of course, every worker should not earn less than that amount. From the least to the top, they should be paid something that is human, a human wage. I don't want to call it minimum wage, a human wage, because you can't even buy a bag of rice with that 70,000 naira as we're speaking. So it means that you are working for an entire month. The entire month's salary cannot fetch you a bag of rice. How does that sound? It's disheartening. The truth is, the government needs to be considerate. When you are asking private employers to pay 70,000 naira, what measure? If it's a private employer that is his total earning is 200,000 naira, how do you expect him to pay 70,000 naira minimum wage? Because all private sector players don't have the same financial muscle and financial strength.
True.
So you can't just make an open statement, you all must pay 70,000 naira minimum wage, without looking at the peculiarities and the challenges and the situation. Secondly, what steps is the government putting in place to help small, medium enterprises to grow and survive the worsening economic situations? The high energy cost and insecurity, poor transportation, many businesses are dying. They are choked. They are choking. They are lacking oxygen to breathe, to survive, to thrive. Double taxation is one of it. Insecurity, a poor infrastructure, power supply. Go to some move around the town. Let me not stretch it. Go and look at some small businesses. Let me give you an example of a barber now in a small barbing shop or a barber's shop. he needs to buy fuel. And if he's buying fuel, that if it is being sold for 1,400 naira, he needs to maintain his equipments and he needs to pay tax. And let's say he employed 2 or 3 people to work for him. Are you expecting him to pay 70,000 naira? What is his total income? Whether you're looking at their gross earning or whatever you want to classify it under, look at the peculiar challenges businesses are facing. I think what the government should be doing is calling this private sector to a round table, working together with them, look at the major challenges small businesses are facing in Nigeria, SMEs and all that. Look at how you can even subsidize some things for them. Look at areas of double taxation. Many of them, they pay tax come, they collect tax. Do you know, I was looking at the data for transportation in the transportation sector. These those people who collect money from these public transporters, they in billions. And the remittance, what they remit to the government, to the revenue account, is less than what they are collecting. So there are some players that are benefiting from that money. But you can improve
according to the data
according to the data, okay. Because many they are making billions from the collections they are making from these transport drivers, public transport drivers, and they are making billions. Now they are remitting less than 20% to the revenue, to the government accounts. So the other ones, no one can tell. Now the reality is that if the government wants to improve on that sector, for example, they can bring in technology to minimize corruption and then ensure efficiency in terms of working together with the transport union to see that these funds are channeled not to individual collecting it on the road. You can even employ these people because there's no job. Many of them have to hustle to survive.
How do you see this impacting the economy and impacting businesses? Some employees might want to celebrate at this, but before they start celebrating, let's look at how exactly this will impact businesses, individuals, and the economy.
On the flip side, many employers will sack and there will be they will relieve some people of their positions because they cannot meet up. Now we are complaining about unemployment in our country, that it is alarming. It is sickening. It will get worse because when you are putting it as a law, compelling private business players and private businesses to pay the minimum wage of 70,000 naira without looking at the critical infrastructural deficits confronting small businesses in our country, critical energy, power, they can't, it's expensive. And look at the bills, the electricity bills these small businesses have to pay. The double taxation. I believe that if we want to address and improve on welfare of the citizens, we should look at improving this power supply and reducing double taxation and working together with these private businesses to support them so that they can grow, expand. I believe that as they are growing and expanding, they should pay the 70,000 naira.
But you agree that they agree, since you said as they grow and expand, do you agree that there are a lot of businesses that have grown and they have expanded? So there are businesses that should be able to pay this. Because looking way back, there have been some institutions, whether educational institution or whatever, there have been some institutions that have been paying their staff. If we look at the equivalent of 70,000 naira today, way back as probably 4 years ago, it might have been less, maybe, but it's still the same equivalent, right? Because the value now, right? If we put it side by side, the dollar, the value of that might be less way back because the naira keeps dropping. But then there have been institutions that have been paying their lowest, the staff in the lowest hierarchy now. that amount even before today. What am I trying to explain? There are institutions that can afford this.
Now, I'm not against that. I'm not trying to say there are institutions that can't pay. There are many institutions that can even pay more than that. That's why I say that the government needs to look at it holistically. Each business don't have the same financial strength and muscle, and don't have the same income. So you can't judge an elephant by using an ant's running skills.
So does that mean we shouldn't judge at all because they're not the same?
No, apart from that, I think what we can do also is that there are some businesses, or there are some private businesses that exploit their staff. They exploit them. For example, there are some big schools, I use the word big, the students pay over 500,000 naira per term as school fees, and yet they will pay their staff so little, and those staff will work, they will tap everything in them.
They'll take all the money back.
Everything from them. Their energy, their intellect, their physical strength. They have to work all the time. Every single resource in them will be tapped for the meager amount they will pay them. Those ones should be, you know, the Ministry of Labor, the government should try to have a task force to kind of punish those kind of people. But
you know, this is according to the law. And when Labour was clamoring for this, a lot of Nigerians were saying, come on, look at the current reality. They can no longer, you know, earn 30,000 naira. That is too low. What will it do? But we did not remember this other side of it.
Well, you need to understand that the government, they are the biggest employers of labor. They are among the biggest employers of labor. So much of the attention is on the government in implementing the minimum wage, because they are among the biggest employers of labor. Many private businesses are even shutting down in Nigeria today because of the business environment and the business climate, right? And many businesses are relocating from the country to other neighboring countries, and some even to European countries. Many businesses are shutting down. The reality is that it's easy to say we must implement this law, but let us look at how we can strengthen small, medium enterprises to strive, to grow, to flourish, to succeed.
The question is, what have the conversation been? Because when Labour and federal governments were having this tussle and, you know, conversations, dialogue, it was a tripartite committee. We had the federal government, we had Labour, we had private sector. So when the private sector, definitely they were represented in that conversation. We also had the state governors, they were represented, the government was represented, Labour represented, private. So what happened? Why didn't they, you know, have this part of the conversation? Because we did not hear this part. Now it has been implemented, and then private individuals are saying they can't comply.
The question is if it has really been implemented.
It has been passed law, rather. That's what I meant to say.
There are many state governments that are even finding it difficult to pay the minimum wage. So the government should show the example. Show example to the private sector and to other businesses. Start paying the minimum wage. If all the state governments will implement the law and start paying a minimum wage of 70,000 naira, which is less than what the average political office holder earns, then they are telling the private sector that, look, this is the law, we are doing it, you can do it. So they will not pick up. It's not just saying you all must pay the minimum wage. Meanwhile, the government, who are the largest, among the largest employers of labor, are not even implementing it.
Well, even if we have the government implement it now, right, to show the example to the private individual, is that going to change the fact that there are private individuals who might not be able to afford to pay their staff that as the minimum wage?
That won't change the fact, but that is going to help them to work towards implementing the minimum wage.
What is going to change in their expenses that you mentioned earlier that will all of a sudden help make them to be able to afford it?
Strengthening the factors that we're strengthening their businesses by implementing policies like reducing double taxation, improving power supply, security. These are like vitamins. When a man is sick, sometimes you go to the hospital, the doctor will say you need vitamins. Many of our businesses are sick. They are suffering from severe malaria. They are shaking.
Then let's look at recommendations right now. What you think can be done before power sector is strengthened, before the roads are, put in place, before all of that is being done. Currently, this is a conversation that is going on now, and they're talking about implementing it, and they are saying these private individuals are risking jail term. So what exactly do you think the government can do, especially to identify the ones who can pay, the ones who cannot? What exactly do you think should be the right approach to this?
Give them tax breaks. There should be tax break and reduce double taxation. That's what they can do now. There are other things they can do in terms of the infrastructure and the conducive business environment for this business to grow.
What about saying businesses of this capacity should implement this minimum wage, and they will be followed up to make sure they implement it? But then for businesses of this capacity, it's okay to pay these amounts. Do you think this idea that some Nigerians already have in mind is going to in any way help the situation?
You just made a very important and useful suggestion. Yes, you can classify the businesses. You talk about private sector. That's a large word. Now you can classify businesses of maybe earning in maybe in millions, and this particular one, pay this amount. But also, there should be some tax relief, especially for the smaller businesses, because now they will be spending more money on taxation and yet still looking for money to pay and implement the minimum wage. So if you can give them some tax relief or reduce their taxes, reduce it to a very affordable amount that they can meet up, or even give them tax breaks so that they can, mop up some more funds and build up their businesses.
All right, we're still on minimum wage. The Federal Government's Committee on Consequential Adjustment for Civil Servants' Salaries has set July 29, 2024 as the effective date for implementing the new minimum wage. This was confirmed in a Memorandum of Understanding released after a meeting on Friday. Now, the MOU recommended that wage awards which were discontinued be paid until July 28, 2024, taking into account the current economic conditions. The committee, headed by the head of Civil Service of the Federation, Didi Wilson Jack, emphasized the government's decision based on its financial capacity. And however, the Nigeria Labour Congress has rejected this decision. Benson Upa, head of information of NLC, described the backdating as unfair and unacceptable. Similarly, Tim, National Vice President of the Trade Union Congress, criticized the government for reneging on its promises to implement the new minimum wage starting from May 1st, 2024. Now, civil servants across Nigeria expressed frustration at the delayed implementation of the 70,000 naira minimum wage, describing it as insensitive, especially given the current economic challenges caused by fuel subsidy removal and inflation. So this is us even talking about the federal government not even implementing it yet.
That was why I said that the government should start. Show good example, and others will follow.
All right, while we're done with minimum wage, you can go over and over and over again with that particular story. But let's look at other pressing issues in Nigeria. The Federal Capital Territory Command of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, NSCDC, recounted how its operatives rescued a runs girl, in their words, from a suspected internet fraudster known as a Yahoo boy. The suspect, Joseph Efe, 30, was arrested while attempting to flee Top View Hotel in Wuse, Abuja, after leaving his victim tied up in the hotel room. According to Dr. Olusola Odumosu, FCT commandant, Efe was apprehended after officers noticed his suspicious behavior and chased him down. Upon searching the hotel room, they found the victim, a young woman from Abia State, found bound and naked. Now, if they confess to targeting women through dating sites like different dating sites with the intent to rob them, the NSCDC revealed that if a serial fraudster operates between Port Harcourt, Lagos, Benin, and Abuja, he's a viral guy. He had checked into the hotel on September 17, 2024 and lured his latest victim on the following day. Wow. Odomos to clarify that a viral video of the incident was not filmed by NSCDC operatives and that the suspect and the victim will be handed over to the appropriate agency after further investigation. The NSCDC also issued a warning to hotel owners to increase security measures and advise young women to avoid risky activities. Additionally, the command announced the arrest of a vandal, Usman Ibrahim, that was caught stealing armored cables, and that is another. But let's look at this story of a suspected runs girl and a suspected Yahoo boy. The video has been viral. I don't know if you've seen that video. One question I asked is, because she's a victim, does that stop her from having the right to, you know, not for people not to... what I'm trying to say is people were taking videos of her while she was unclad, while she was nude, right? They were taking videos of her. Men were in that place and taking videos of her. But that's one other side that struck me when I saw that video. I'm like, why didn't you just let her cover up first? But let's get your thoughts on this story.
The pleasure industry is one of the largest employers of labor without official record
Pleasure
and data
industry.
bank.
Dema.
Pleasure industry.
Where are you coming from with this one again?
I'm going somewhere.
Yes, please.
Behind closed doors, in hotel rooms, behind the curtains.
Behind the curtains too?
Behind the curtains.
Wow.
On the streets, at the backyard, different places. This pleasure industry is functioning. Now, we are looking at a Yahoo boy and a runs girl. And the boy wanted to, is exploiting the girl and tied her in a hotel room. Now, I'm driving to a point and I'm driving somewhere. Just, you can follow me in the vehicle. Imagine the Yahoo boy in economics when you want to do a graphical illustration as Y and the runs girl as X. You can graphically display them in the graph. You can display them graphically as point X and Y meeting at a point, and that point is at the hotel. And now this is two factors in place. The question is, our society, morality, and also materialism, two forces fighting against each other. There is a warfare between morality, materialism, and in the middle is the pleasure industry. There is a demand and there is a supply. The girl is in need of something. She didn't just end up in the hotel with a guy. She's in need of something. The guy is also in need of something. Now, when you look at it generally, there are too many cases of too many young girls that have been exploited, sexually abused, and have become victims. And also many young men that have become victims. What we should ask ourselves is, how can we leave this class of darkness into a class of light? What stops the next girl from becoming a victim? The stories of victims have not even stopped or deterred others. There is a deep hunger for material wealth. So a young girl out there is looking for the easy way out. She wants money. She does not care. You can't just be hanging around with everyone you see or everybody. And many guys, young guys, they are so desperate for money. They want it now and just now. They don't want to go through any process.
Why does it feel like a lot of our young people don't know what to do to make money?
Is it that they don't know what to do to make money? The question is they don't want to, the reality is they don't want to go through the process.
Because when you hear a young boy complaining about not having money, the next thing you hear is maybe his parents are putting pressure on him and all that. And then the next thing you hear is...
And not based on facts or reality. So when a young guy comes to a point in his life when he looks at his peers and they are driving expensive cars, living the big boy kind of life, he feels like his life is, he's not living, his life is meaningless. The true meaning of your life is not only when you buy a car or build a house, but when you realize and discover your purpose. The patience is a virtue that many don't have. So many young people today, they don't want to be patient. They don't want to go through apprenticeship and learning and the process of building their capacity. That's why even most of these Yahoo boys or whatever they call themselves, when they have the money, most of them misuse it because it's ill-gotten. So they spend it extravagantly. The reality is that the family, our family as an institution, or the family as an institution, must wake up and start building and raising children that will understand that success is not defined by how much cars you have. Our society is very materialistic. So if you're asking why many young people are... Unemployment is driving a lot of people. Hunger,
unemployment is not just that today. That's the funny part of it.
I know that, but even though unemployment did not start today, it is worsening. It is worsening. All
right, at this point, even though we would like to continue the conversation, we have to wrap things up on the show. We apologize for that, but due to circumstances beyond our control, this is how far we can go with Atlantic Sunday for today. Thank you so much, Dema, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
My name is Enidoye Jackson, and it's a pleasure. Stay connected with us on ATN.
From life across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring all the sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economic, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today, only on ATN.